you're a brother or whether you're a mother, you're staying alive, staying alive. Feel the city breaking and everybody shaking, and we're staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive.
All right, this is Staying Alive, and I'm Louie J. This is the podcast, and I'm grateful you guys are joining me today. Thanks for tuning in. With all the podcasts you could choose, I'm happy you chose this one. And Frank's here with me today, so Frank and I are going to ramble about things that have come to light in the last little while. How's it going, Frank?
Good. Hopefully I'm in focus today. The last podcast, I'm not in it because my lack of skills on focus on that camera. No,
It was a fast setup.
It was a fast setup, and I'm like, oh, great. Maybe I'll just put a still frame of me in it or something like that. But hopefully this is now working. I can see the monitor there, so it seems to be in focus, so we'll see how we go.
Well, we need you in that focus, bud. We need you in this Louie and Frank show in the sidelines here. You need to see us both. That's great. Anyway, how are things been? Like, what have you been up to?
Personally, pretty busy. We're doing more renos in our house. It just seemed like we had all this downtime. I was like, well, let's do something, take advantage of this time. Like when we went to the first lockdown, I painted the entire house. And then now we're renovating our main floor, so we had to move the entire family in the basement, and we're sleeping upstairs, and it's just been
chaotic.
The day of demo is really bad. Like it's just so messy and nails and everything. But now, like, demo crew's gone. Now it's just carpentry, so it's very civilized, and you hear the odd saw and banging once in a while, but it's not like
It's
the
not the
crazy
constant
noise and mess of 3 days of ripping everything out. So.
Well, I think you and most of the population are going through some form of demo, reno. I mean, I heard the retail reports for spending, and of course, renovation materials are through the roof.
Yeah, lumber is expensive.
Lumber's expensive. The pre-orders takes you months to get product in. And
Well, I was telling you, appliances. Our contractor was saying that if you don't order them now, it might be 4 months, maybe a year. And it all depends on what's in stock and what's not in stock. And apparently there was a shortage of circuits, circuit breakers or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Which affected the appliance business and I believe the automotive. They were shutting down automotive plants for a little while till they got caught up. So
It's incredible. You don't know the strain on the system until you start living through this and recognizing that the connection for one little product has a major effect on the delivery of so many.
Yeah, the supply chain. Like early, the lumber yards, the mills shut down when everything happened, when COVID launched, and now it's just catch up, right? People
Catch-up
got
time.
sick. They have to run 24/7. They're just impossible to catch. Like last summer, everybody bought all this lumber to build decks and fences, and there's nothing left.
That's right. We did the same. We built a fence. Finally, the dogs have a place to wreck the backyard without any restrictions or limitations. They're out on their own, and we've got a yard to clean up now. But the fence that went in is incredible, and it gave us a privacy because we're on a corner lot.
Yeah.
And the whole world kind of peers into our little corner lot. So it's nice to have that. But we were lucky. We got in at the right time.
Yeah.
We did have to have a little delay, and then of course it's the contractors and the people that are doing it after the fact.
And we heard, some crews got COVID, so they were out for weeks. Like the ripple effect. Most of them made it through, no problem, but some of them had it worse than others. But I mean, like, it's just everything's just getting a monkey wrench thrown into the whole process. So. But it seems like right now that we've been back, a week and a half now, in the gray area. I think that's what they got us.
Gray zone, yeah.
Yeah, just
modified gray.
Modified gray. People are just carrying on like COVID never even happened right now. I mean, they're still wearing masks, but the way that they're carrying on and carrying themselves, it's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's frustrating to see because, of course, we as a business, in this particular business, are still shut down. Although retail is open, we're allowed 25% capacity. But 25% in a barbershop that's not allowed to do barbering services really doesn't amount to much. I mean, in the sense that people aren't knocking down the door to come in and buy their hair pomade or their beard oil. So it didn't really do much to affect us. I think that we recognize that our biggest next important play is to increase the product offerings on our website, make sure that our online game is really strong, continue to drive new products, and build a community online because, hey, listen, I want to be well prepared for when this happens again. It's not even a matter of if, but when it does happen again, certainly won't be caught with our pants down there, you know? Anyway, back to your renovation story. I think that a lot of people are sharing that same challenge right now. And I've constantly been working on something at the house when time allowed, and I'm so happy to report that I've got an office back.
Nice.
Because in every other project, you ended up, you know, making the office or that spare room or that bedroom or that, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a garage, we don't. It just gets filled and it becomes a dumping ground. And my office became the dumping ground, and I wasn't being effective when I was in there. I felt like I was just drowning in clutter because...
And you don't want to even hang out in there because it doesn't feel like a good work environment too. Like I know for myself, if I'm not in the right environment, like to study, I have to go to a library.
Oh, is that right?
I can't do it anywhere else. I gotta be in the full, they built this place to be quiet. That's where I got to study if I'm doing a test or anything.
Head down.
Head down. I can't do it anywhere else at home or anything. I have to go to the library. That just works for me. So I have to be completely immersed in the environment. So if my desk and my area and it's got all this stuff in the way, it's like I can't feel productive in there at all.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm in the same boat.
I literally take my computer off my desk, bring it into the kitchen table, and just like start cranking there because it just feels just better.
It's just cleaner, and the environment allows more to come into your mind. I did the same thing. I spent most of my Zoom calls with clients sitting in my dining room. The nice part is that we just did a little upgrade to the dining room, so I'm really, really proud of this photo wall that we created, this framed wall. You know, when you mash a bunch of frames together on a wall, not always do they look good, but this one took me a long time, and I was really, really happy for it. So I didn't mind doing my meetings out there, but I'll tell you, having a fully functional, organized office again is like magic. I've got the whiteboards rolling. I'm coming up with creative ideas and thoughts. And last time we met on the podcast, I was talking about this need for creativity. I need some injection. Now that I've got the office back, I've got a sofa in there, a beautiful sofa, where I can actually just mac out, put the feet up, and then scroll through the world of the internet and see what I can get creatively to come into play. But now that I've got the environment again, I feel like there's production happening. There's productivity and creativity on the rise. That makes me really happy. And of course, you know, I'm looking forward to the moment when we can get back into the stores and open those up and see that light again too. But, you know,
the malls are open.
The malls are open,
My son immediately had to go return a sweatshirt. Like I said, you know, you could wait a week. It's probably rammed with people all probably thinking along the same lines. So why don't you just wait a week so there's less? And you know, I feel for the teenagers. Yeah, the teenagers are the ones that are missing it the most. I mean, this is the time for them to be social. They have, you know, only a few short years until they start working part-time or whatever it might be. And then, you know, university, it's going to fly by and you're antisocial.
Yeah, you're antisocial. You haven't really been able to work through the challenges of socialization because you haven't had the exposure and experience. And some of those best learnings are the ones that are most painful in those moments, you know? How do you navigate the conversation or that kid that's just, you know, where the spotlight couldn't be brighter, you know, that needs to have that attention and you play off of that personality, and that now allows you to have an understanding of how to interact and engage. I mean, I think we've got I've said it before, we've got a really long road ahead of us to figure out all the hiccups and the bumps that have been presented along the way. You know, when it comes to people's, you know, interaction and social skills, I've heard companies say they're not going back at all to offices.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an interesting play for how that, you know, affects business and commerce and the social environment of offices. Some people, you know, the escape of home is so important for them, that mix up, that these expectations of where you need to be or where you want to be, and not being able to be there, I think a lot of people are going to struggle for a very long time. At the same time, I think that there's a chance to modify that work environment for the good. And that doesn't necessarily mean that a no return is the only answer. Maybe there's a chance to see that 4-day. I think there was, it's Spain, I believe.
Yeah.
Was it Spain?
I think it was Spain. Yeah, they were not protesting, but presenting it to their parliament that they're advocating for a 4-day
work week.
I think what they should do is have the option, like you can work, majority of your time at home, but maybe come in once or twice a week. That would be fantastic for everything.
I agree.
Traffic, crowds on the subway, crowds on the train, commuters. Like I think it would really help our society quite a bit.
I think there's so many opportunities for us to take advantage if we were just going to simply try to get back into what we were doing before. What a shame. We've learned a lot.
Yes.
We've got a lot more to learn. I get it. But now when you're talking about revolutionizing a system, like I think about the school system all the time,
Yeah.
but if I can put it into play right off the bat, private enterprise, businesses where they have a chance to be able to make a difference and become a leader in making a difference. And there's enough case studies around the world that we can draw on to say, hey, this worked really well from a social, an economic, a community level, somewhere over there. So let's take some of those best learnings, best practices, and put them into play here. And I think maybe 4-day work week would be a great way to.
It's a great start.
Well, think about it. I mean, not just traffic. You made a comment that's right off the bat. You see a reduction in traffic, which means a reduction in costs, gas. I mean, it could be it's a fifth, right? It's a percentage of. But then you think about wear and tear, and if you go beyond the car, you think about clothing. So now you've got one less day to worry about. Do I look appropriate for my job in the environment that it demands that I look like this?
Right.
Because we recognize now that it's nowhere nearly as important as it was before.
I heard the phrase, this is the first time I've worn hard pants in a year.
Hard pants?
Hard pants. Jeans.
Amazing. But that's big. I mean, if you can all of a sudden take out of the schedule the commuting time for that one day, the cost for lunch, the gas,
those things all help businesses too. Like we want everybody to be successful and run their businesses accordingly. But also, here's an interesting thing. My wife and I have saved more money than ever before during this lockdown because we're not commuting, eating out, kids aren't in programs. Like there's a give and a take. But I think a lot of people expected to lose a ton of money, and a lot of people probably have, but we were able to save money during this time. Wasn't a lot, but the point is like we weren't chasing as we were pre-pandemic.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people in that same situation.
Well, their spending patterns were forced change, and that I think has a major impact into what stays in the account. So
yes.
we're not on $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 vacations.
Yes.
Family vacations, on average, 5 people, $2,000 each.
Easy.
You're at a minimum of $10,000. And, that's if you're fortunate enough to have that as part of your plan anyway. And a lot of people I know do. So all of a sudden, $10,000 is now back in your pocket.
Right.
And you may have had a challenge making the money, or maybe you didn't. Maybe it was business as usual, and your company, kept you employed.
That's right.
And so great for you. For those people that were able to see that, you're seeing, probably a $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000 savings over the course of a year now that we've seen this. Not eating out as much, not being entertained as much. There's less for us to spend money on, and in a lot of respects, I think it's helped people recognize what it is that was essential for them and what they'd like to do, what would be a nice by the way, or what was on the wish list. And, my wife, Tammy, said, she really doesn't miss the restaurants. And we were, frequently at restaurants because it was just a social thing to do. And there's no real, and I hate to say that because I want my restaurant friends to do well.
Exactly.
But it doesn't need to be as often or as frequent as I used to do it, because I just realized that I'm okay. You know, I'm okay without it. That's not to say that curbside pickup's not an amazing option,
Right.
because we do treat ourselves to that. Outside of becoming really good cooks, better cooks, I should say, we still want to support and we still want to be able to encourage people to do that. But when it comes to how that affects the dollar, it's made a major impact, because we too have seen kind of, you know, a nice buildup of the fund.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually had us talking about 2022 and what that looks like for where are we going to go?
Yeah.
Where's the family vacation?
There's a lot
Because
of people that are saying the same thing. Like we just want to plan that place to be at to kind of rid the stink
yes,
of what we've been going through.
let me plan something. Let me get excited about it. I was quite excited this week because friends of ours are on a cruise in 2022, and
Wow.
That used to be something we did regularly for March break. We did a family vacation on a cruise, and we decided to pull away from cruises and move into like destinations and see more and be part of the culture. And that's how we found Costa Rica last year, and that was exceptional. That happened right at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
We were over there and came back with wide eyes and had this love and affection for Costa Rica. We fell in love with it.
Yeah.
So as we're starting to plan and look for these, future dates, there's an excitement and there's a thrill to it again. And that's something that,
been lacking for a year. Absolutely.
You got to really make sure you're doing something to keep you excited, that adds a little flair. And if planning a vacation does that, then I say go ahead and plan it. Actually, according to American Express, one of the upspends in, them identifying where people are spending their money is travel. Travel is going through the roof right now. Whether it's
just pre-booking stuff,
there's a lot of pre-booking, but the actual travel that's happening in country is massive. So, and certainly in the States, there's more flights that are happening in the U.S. right now. It's like there's nothing that's ever happened.
From my camping neighbors, everything's booked.
Everything's booked for camping. Yeah, you can't get a cottage, you can't get a chalet.
RVs are hard to come by. Any kind of rental or purchase, they can't keep them in stock for purchase, which is fantastic because I think we should be traveling within our own country to see it. It's a beautiful country. You know what I watched last night? There was a movie called 1 Week. Have you seen that movie?
I don't think so.
It's great. It's great. And this young guy who's about to get married discovers that he's being diagnosed with cancer and he's got a week to live. And he lives in Toronto. Like it's a total Canadian flick. It's awesome.
Cool.
Great soundtrack. I think most of the people in the soundtrack are Canadian artists. And he's walking through one of those alley garages in Toronto, and this dude had a garage door open. I think it's Dan Aykroyd. I didn't see that part. I picked it up halfway through the movie last night. It was on Crave. And he decides to ride his motorcycle from Toronto to Vancouver. And along the way, there's all these wonderful things happen. But it's just like, it's a beautiful country to see.
Oh, you're seeing landscapes in the movie? Yeah.
And everything like that. The people, the cultures. And I hope more people do that. We have to really play in our backyard for a while, and then it's great to go to Costa Rica. Don't get me wrong,
of course,
particularly in the winter months. But we have so much to offer.
Oh my gosh,
in this country.
Yeah, I've seen a fair bit of Canada. I've been fortunate enough. In those early days, and when we talked about the military, I got a chance to be in a bunch of different places. And some that I can't wait to return to, some that I'm looking forward to bring the family to because I've seen it without them and they need to see and experience and, quite frankly, breathe it in. And I mean literally breathe it in because every single region has a different smell and the water tastes different and all those things that make it really special. But you're right. We have a very, very attractive, place to visit for people all around the world. So sometimes you don't know what you have until you realize that you can't go anywhere else. You got to spend some time here. Let's start looking at it.
And the thing is too, like, the way COVID is going, it doesn't make any sense, but in the summer times, it just seems like it would be a lot easier to, if you're doing like a travel with a Winnebago or a camping or whatever, a lot easier. You're still able to do it, a lot easier to manage and be able to social distance a lot easier. So at least people will have that, because right now it's nothing. Kids can't even play hockey together.
Yeah, no, it's a challenge. Actually, one of the best vacations our family had was on a Winnebago. It wasn't a Winnebago. It was, one of those, what are they called? RVs. Sorry, I couldn't think of RV, 2 letters. But it was out to the East Coast.
Oh.
And it was my first time driving anything that big. I was definitely nervous about it, but realized that I quickly kind of mastered it. Except for a long stretch of road in just outside of Montreal, where the wind was so strong that I felt like we were going to tip over. It was very scary, but for the most part, it was more manageable than expected.
Yeah.
But what that did, man, like the music and the reading and the food and the pit stops and all the stuff along the way just made it a very special time for my family and the kids.
And how old were your kids when you did that?
It was only 3 years ago. So we had, I think, 2 late teens. Macy might have been 15 or something like that. Miller around 12, and then Madeline was probably 18.
Oh, that's perfect.
And we brought Madeline's brand new little dog. So there was, a pet on there on the trip as well. And we went out to the East Coast to New Brunswick to visit family. So
nice.
We pulled up in the big RV, planted it in the acreage that they have out there because they all have tons of land. And it was really special. We had a really, quite remarkable time. And actually the kids put it as one of their top 5 vacations.
Really?
And my kids have been all over the place.
Wow.
Like, to the point where it's, they're very fortunate. They've been into some of the best hotels and destinations around the world. A lot to do with what I do for work, but they have a discerning palate as a result. And the one that you would think would be the most challenging for them, without all the bells and whistles that you think would never rank up there, it's just about spending time with each other.
It is, yeah. We've always romanticized about the idea of taking the family for an hour. We can't even go a half an hour in a minivan with all 4 of my kids without... Okay, this like half an hour we can last, really? And we want to go out east? That's not going to happen. So the whole thing is like maybe we fly there, pick up the Winnebago, and then drive around and like just for our sanity, because I would love it. I mean, I would just be an absolute heaven to be able to do a road trip like that because I love that stuff.
Yeah, maybe when the kids get a little older
I
for you.
think
You've got young ones.
Yeah.
That's the difference. I think when they can, eat, breathe, and sleep on their own without any coaxing or help, then you got something special there.
But the constant complaining is just, wow, okay.
Too much.
Yeah, we're going to have to put that one off. I'm like, yeah, it sounds great. It's beautiful. It's going to be awesome when they're older.
When you're older. Yeah, that's where it has to land. So anyways, the kids, I think, are very excited about, moving into what's next. They're anxious. They're all in school. So that's something that keeps on coming up as a topic.
I did hear today that for March break, some students have been told, make sure you take all your stuff home because March break is coming up.
Yes.
Make sure you take everything home just in case we don't come back right away. I know. And it's like, don't even think about it. Don't even say it. Don't even think about it.
I don't know what that's going to happen. I can't even imagine if we go into that again.
Yeah. That's
well, to me, here's another one of those, reform moments. Like I mentioned it before, I think that our education system is really it's been built for all the wrong reasons. It's just like daylight savings time.
That's another conversation that's come up too. Obviously,
it's no longer
not relevant.
Not relevant, and the way that these kids are being taught, the way we were taught. Even the methodology and some of the instruction has, gone by the way of the dodo bird.
But I don't understand why. I understand that you always want to advance and improve. I understand that, but it doesn't seem like that's been the application in the education system. And then you have unions involved, and like all of a sudden you've taken an idea and messed it up with, well, we can't have that because the union will never go. But aren't we here to educate the kids and give them what's best?
Right. And that's not this catch-all that they've created is not effective. It's not working. People shouldn't. I mean, people that right now, kids are coming out of school. I think there's a new course that's available to them where financial literacy is part of the program. However, it should have been the number one class. You can learn algebra and calculus, and for whatever reason that you never use it again in your life, but you can't figure out how to balance a checkbook or a bank account because you didn't. Nobody's instructed you, and that's critical. That foundation on money management is so valuable and important into the future of how they operate, how their families operate. You end up learning what your family knows. And if that's not been part of the program, then you're only fortunate if your family did know it and could pass that on to you and give you some good guidance. But to me, that's where, at the very least, that needs to be changed. But I've been listening to a senator. I'm really not really good with names, but anyway, she's on TikTok, and it's great because she's very clear about the fact that, she doesn't know that she belongs on TikTok, but her daughter's helping her through that. And I'll tell you, her content is amazing. And one of the things she came out with the other day was, should post-secondary education not be free in Canada? And that's finally somebody is talking my language, because when we can bail out corporations to the tune of gazillions of dollars and put that as our priority, to make sure that tax base and those people are employed, wouldn't you think that a country that dedicates and commits itself to higher education, because if that's what's so critical and important, and we're pumping out some very smart brains in the world, why not make post-secondary education in Canada free? Like, why not? Let's level the playing field. Let's create equal opportunity and be that leader around the world where, I'm sure there's other places that have fantastic programs and have, like I say, case studies to be able to validate why this makes sense. That, I think, is one of the ones that should come to the table and be talked about, because I think the discussion and the outcome warrants it. Like, people are interested in that. The other part of it that I thought should be reformed is the curriculum and the criteria. And if there's not a time and restructuring things that we've seen right now where it's been forced upon us, let's just take a step back and recognize all the changes we made. We're recognizing that kids can learn online.
Right.
It might not be the most ideal situation for a lot.
I think there's a certain age group.
Right.
I think the younger kids can handle it for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
And then you need the social interaction. You need to be together. But I found that the teenagers, they need that social interaction too, but they can handle the workload a lot better than the kids that are 7 or 8.
Yes.
That was just my observation with 4 kids at home on computers doing online for several months. And it was just the younger ones. It was a disaster. And, all of a sudden my high schooler is getting like 80s and 90s from going online.
Right. And the same. We saw
and
the same.
Understanding everything, because they cut the course, the curriculum in terms of the course load to 2 classes per quadmester or whatever it is.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, you can focus entirely on that subject matter, just whether you like it or not. You're going to be able to retain that information. Isn't that what it's all about, though?
Well, that's the thing. It's not just this, and the emphasis forever has been put on the memorization of content, and that's pointless. It has no bearing on the future, whether I remember it today and going to apply it tomorrow.
Because we need to teach thinking.
Thinking, that's the difference.
Thinking.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being able to prepare people for worldly events.
Right.
Teach them to be entrepreneurs. Teach them to be trade, and teach them to be something that they've shown a spark or an interest in. And then, all of the other things that are, mandatory, spelling and language and communication and all that stuff. Yes, I get it. Mm-hmm. But the way you do it, I mean, they're even beginning to show studies where the tolerance for information is much less than we expect them to perform. And so we expect them to perform in a schedule that starts at this time and ends at this time, and we inject a break here and a lunch here and a break here, because that system was built around
factory workers.
You got it. And so that story is making its way around the world, which is amazing, because when you start to realize it, and you've heard it, that the Rockefellers were creating school so that they fundamentally could train future workers for the revolution and the businesses that they were part of and bringing to life. And then, of course, if I've got children, I can't be there to look after them. I've got to be at the job. So the schedule for the school has been set to be able to make sure that I get maximum productivity from the parents.
Yes.
So let's just take a step back for a second and recognize that was then. This is now. We need to really focus on preparedness for their future. And now more than ever, when people are coming out, we began to tell, remove the emphasis of university on jobs. Employers are looking now for a well-rounded, individual that has just enough of this and enough of that to make sure that they're going to be a perfect fit for you.
Right.
And not always does the academia part of this become the only answer and the only solution. So the mark doesn't mean as much as it did.
Yeah.
And employers and people in general are beginning to recognize the value of personality and creativity and the connection of all of these pieces that make up a really well-rounded individual. So I love seeing that transformation happening. I love when it doesn't require that you need this, and this, because personalities often can't be trained. That's what I hire on. I hire on personality and skill. Skill in a lot of cases, when you come to the trade skill that these professionals that work with me here have, then you need to have the skill.
Right.
It has to be part of this.
Yeah.
But your personality is everything to me. It goes far beyond the skill. We can actually improve the skill. As I've seen and evidenced in some of the content that I've put on the stages for our national meetings where, our clients are recognizing that the growth mindset says you can learn anything.
Right.
Anything with application and interest.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we got to make some changes. And I'm hopeful that there's more people out there talking about this.
Well, and also, too, you have to recognize now the whole gig economy, too, that's growing. And because of COVID, that's expanded quite a bit, too. I mean, that's a whole new way of making a living for some people. I know I've known some creatives that have worked for a facility or an animation house or an editing house or a sound house forever. And now, most of these folks are freelance now, working on same projects they were working on before, but now they're in complete control of their time and their the projects that they work on too.
That's the wild part of being an independent or a freelancer, and everybody thinks that you have the chance to run your own schedule, when in fact your schedule is dictated by the opportunity.
Right.
And you got to jump. And
you're still busy.
You're busy.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're up till midnight going back and forth like, how's this edit?
Yes.
Because the job requires that. Deadlines are deadlines and you have to meet them. And so when something's on your plate, you're cranking it. But tomorrow, when it's done, and I have a couple days between the next gig, that's free time for my kids.
Yeah, you can invest in other things that make you happy. There is some freedom and liberty there that you don't get when you're tied down and you've got to be at the desk from 9 to 5 or whatever. But I don't think. I know that there's reason and purpose in having somebody connected to the office, and there is some kind of collaboration piece that really could be quite efficient and effective. I do miss the collaboration with my teams and being one-on-one. I think that there's something special about it. You can judge personality. You can begin to, even the way that the little conversation happens, the raising of the eyebrow means something. So I never want to give that up. But
it shouldn't be one or the other.
Right. I think, yes.
We are going to figure this. Obviously, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
As time goes on, as this virus dissipates, hopefully, we're going to figure this out and find out where the happy medium is. Because, I think people are depressed and upset and scared right now because of the news. But I think we have been pretty happy people despite that. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, I think I share that view. I think that makes sense.
we've always made it a point at our house to have dinner together, and it's always been like that. It's just an Italian thing, I guess. I don't know. But to hear people that we know that never had that time before, how much it's changed their lives.
Well, I think, it's always been important, but we were living really busy lives in my house where quite often, nobody's in the same place at the same time. And if they were, then they were out doing something else. And that's been the significant change.
There was always something to do, though. Like,
yes,
we had so many choices to like movie, like just name it. With any stitch of free time, we weren't confined to go, hey, you can't go there anymore because it's not open. Like that never existed. Right. Everything was open all the time.
Yeah, choice unlimited. And I think actually we had the conversation in the house. We were talking about school. That's why I thought this was topical. In the house, we were talking about how it's changed and what's important to them. And we also talked about being forced to be together.
Yes.
And the question that came up was, do you think that when we have more options down the road, we're still going to choose to do this? Is this just a temporary love-in, and then when the whole world goes back to, schedules and calendars that are fully filled, is this going to be something that we want to do?
The question is, too, do you feel more fulfilled now than you did before?
Oh, my gosh. Night and day.
Yeah.
And I was fulfilled before. I was very fulfilled.
But you also didn't recognize how the pace you were in or at was not 100% that necessary to be at that pace.
It was in fact much more work to be fulfilled and to feel like, we're making those connections and contributions, and because you would have to kind of maneuver around everything else you had in play. It was quite disappointing to hear that you didn't have time to do something that really would have been much more meaningful if you'd just done it.
Yeah.
And so I think that the cool response was, it was from my eldest, where she said, "Are you kidding me?" She goes, "I prefer hanging out with you guys, over some of my friends."
Wow, cool.
And she said that to me a couple of times over the course, even well before COVID, where, if her and her friends were going out and, we were going out, she would ask if they could come along. And I thought that was interesting because either one or two things happen there. They want you to pay for it, or they had nothing else to do. And in both cases, they didn't expect any of that, and all of a sudden I get the feeling that we're entertaining,
you're the fun.
Our kids are enjoying this, right down to music selection. I've been told too that, let's listen to your playlist. I'm like, what, really? You want to listen to my playlist? That's an incredible, feeling where all of a sudden you've transcended generations. You've got a connection or a bridge between generations. And then we're beginning to see a lot of that, which has been very cool.
Hey, man, I just watched that Billie Eilish documentary on Apple TV.
Cool.
Oh, my God. That girl is a super talent.
Super talent.
Like,
her and her brother.
Oh, but you have to – the documentary's great. I mean, it's cinema verite in the room while they're writing this music for this album. Like, I mean, they were there from the day they started. And it's amazing, the family dynamic. I think they were both homeschooled. Both parents were musicians, I believe. And their lives were singing and performing with the family.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, Junior, Phineas, the son, the brother, he's just an amazing songwriter. And she's an amazing singer. And together, like, it's fantastic. And she is so talented.
Well, she's a representation of today, in my opinion, where I don't subscribe. I don't need to subscribe. I don't have to be anything to anybody else.
Right.
I'm going to be fully committed to me, to the music I create, to the look that I have, to the way that I speak to people. I mean, it is really quite refreshing to see. And in some cases, I think it might be misunderstood, where it almost looks like you're anti-connection, anti-community, anti-fans, and that's not the case at all.
No, once you watch this documentary too, you'll grow a whole new level of appreciation for her. And she's fabulous. She really is. And she's just like any normal kid, you know,
That's great.
she's got a great sensibility. And it's just awesome to see parents parent. And, you know, and I think they've done, that's a tough thing to homeschool a child for sure. And
Well, especially given that the resources weren't there during that type of homeschooling.
Yeah.
Where it's more traditional in the sense of either you were a granola organic
Yes.
hippie and you were, you know, oh, you're one of those ones. You know,
Right.
that's what the thought was. But I think there's definitely a different take on that today.
Yeah.
And thankfully, because let's produce some really great human beings.
I think you're going to see a big movement in the homeschool process for sure. I think more and more people are going to choose to do that. Obviously, going through what we've gone through this year, parents are starting to recognize, going, you know what, like this is not working for me.
Right.
It's not working for my kid. And I'm sure we can figure out some way. We have a friend that moved to Vancouver, and she homeschooled her 3 daughters. And she was an early childhood educator, so she, you know, education was kind of in her wheelhouse. But she had it managed really well, where she connected with a whole bunch of other homeschool kids, so they would constantly, like, you know, when it was recess, they'd all get together and play together. So there was this
Community.
one of the things that a lot of people probably have a misconception is homeschool kids are weird. They can't socialize or whatever. But, I mean, she made sure that they were always, you know, things to do, field trips, everything like that. And she felt that her children were a lot better prepared when it came to go to college. That her kids would call and go like, these people are
Messed up.
they're not prepared for any of this work. Like, it's insane.
That's great. I mean, I love to see those stories. And actually, when you said it was good to see somebody parent, I think that, you know, the more examples we can have as parents, the better off we'll be, because there's no rule book. And, you know, here I am 21 years into this, and I still don't know what I'm doing. I have no real guide other than my guide, my moral compass,
Right.
my things that I've learned along the way. I think I'm knowledged. But a lot of what I've learned out of, trial and error. I think
Yeah.
most of us do. But when you see something that's working for somebody else, you tend to gravitate to that and adopt and realize that that was a good thing that you saw. So I love when you can get some good real life examples, or you love the way that guy,
Yeah.
talked to, his son or daughter, and you picked up some good learning along the way.
Yeah.
I think the more of that we can see, the better for everybody. Good examples for us to kind of live by, which is kind of cool. I understand too that on the Billie Eilish conversation that they all still live in the same house.
Yeah. They still record in his bedroom,
That's
brother's bedroom.
That's incredible. The whole
Which
album
is
was
awesome.
recorded there.
All in there, and they mastered it at a different location, but that's typically the way things go. You just send it to somebody who can master it. But it's amazing to watch them write songs, like, and the time that it takes. Like, it's a long process to write a tune, and I have all the respect in the world for people that write music and perform music and stuff. But to watch it, to be there, to document that, like that, they were smart to have cameras in there right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she released a song when she was 16 on was it iCloud?
Really?
No,
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud. Sorry. And it just took off, like millions of listeners. And she was doing concerts prior to the release of that album, like singing the songs.
She built an audience before, and
The music was out there.
I love this, back to this whole idea of disruption, when people are disrupting the way it happens and then create a better path, an easier, maybe more efficient, who knows, whatever it is. But I love when things are rattled, and we got rattled, on many different levels. So it makes you rethink the way you do things. And I love the fact that the music industry had to be turned upside down, and it is, and we're sharing music freely. We pay for services now where everybody's getting a piece of it again, thankfully. It's really exciting. I think that those kind of examples out there, really are motivating, young musicians that are kind of seeing somebody overnight turn into something that they never expected to be. That's very cool.
Yeah. But a lot of people don't realize she's not an overnight sensation because she's been playing and singing music her entire life.
Right.
Right? She just happened to be at her peak when the opportunity came.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, and not to suggest that she's not talented and didn't put a lot of effort into that. My point about overnight was it took one video.
Yeah.
That's it. It took one video. We are so fortunate to be living in the time we are. This is, for me, the most exciting thing of my life right now.
We were talking about this, the digital art guy. What was his name?
Beeble.
Yes.
Beeble. So this is also exciting. I mean, the fact that like disruption and turning things on their head, because what you expect that value is and where it's been created, and it's been in investments and property and art and collectibles, all of a sudden, in comes this thing that I was talking about last podcast, which was digital art. I couldn't remember the acronym, but it's NFT, non-fungible token. And NFTs, although aren't new, they're new to the mainstream in the last 4, 5, 6 months, where digital art is being authenticated.
Authenticated.
Oh my gosh. Frank, we need to talk more. It's being authenticated through the blockchain, of course, all connected to cryptocurrency. It's being paid for by crypto in a lot of respects. So here's this brand new world that kind of just came out for us. And digital artists are seeing, on auction, there are going from, $20. And to your point about Beeble, who started creating in, I think, 2015.
Yeah. So he's an artist that has been working on digital art since he was a young kid, right? Like is he still a teenager?
I don't know. I don't know enough about him, but I do know this, that
he made headlines.
I watched his family and him watching the auction. I think it was Christie's auction house that were auctioning. I think it was called 5,000 days or 5,000 starts or pieces or something about 5,000, where the premise is that for 5,000 days he was creating a piece of digital art every single day.
Oh my God.
Or a piece of art every day that he digitized, and the collection went up. And
he created it all on a computer platform. It's not like he painted something and took a picture of it. Like it's all generated out of the computer.
Yeah, and that in itself, because there's lots of experimental and new artists that are out there that are using only digital platforms.
Right.
I think that's amazing. It's kind of like the discussion and debate between musicians and DJs. Are they not all musicians? Artists digital and artists traditional. Are they not all artists? So anyway, I saw this clip where his family were watching as the auction started, and it was at 25,000, and then it went to $1 million, and everybody was freaking out. Then it was 25 million, and then it landed. The gavel went down at $69 million. But
we're not talking about one piece of art to one person. It was many bids combined, right, to make it that much. Isn't that correct? Or
quite frankly, I thought that they bought the full collection. I could be
wrong.
Is it?
Yeah, the collection. Okay.
They bought one purchaser, whether that was a group of people or companies or who knows who knows who had that kind of stash to put into it. But they bought the collection for $69 million, unheard of. Unheard of. And then of course you start seeing,
and they probably cut out a middleman. Right? Like, I mean, there's art dealers and art.
Right. It's direct.
Right?
Direct
so it's
source.
just right to him.
Right. And then 30% for the auction house. Even better. Could you imagine?
No.
That's the beautiful part. Can you imagine? And now, of course,
But he'd been working on this
for a long time.
Not just working on the art, but working on, like, we have to be able to present this and put it out there so people can purchase it in this manner. He was really a guy who kind of like said, I think this is how it's going to be, and we should lay the groundwork for it.
And we don't know. I mean, right now we kind of like 69 million. Can you imagine?
We should get him on the podcast.
And we should get him on the podcast. Beeble, we're looking for you. Come on and let us share some information. Anyway, the point there is that I think, like anything, when it's brand new and it's exciting and it's got one application, you're like, I don't really get it.
Yeah.
I don't see how this is going to be something that we talk about in 5 years.
Perfect.
However, I think what's bigger than this is not knowing where it's going to go. And I've already heard about the authentication. Authenticating a file is the bigger story here.
Oh, okay.
A digital file, because right now.
But who does that?
Well,
who's the authenticator?
There's a bunch of houses that are authenticating artwork.
Okay.
You pay a fee for it, and you register. And it
gets recognized.
It gets kind of like date stamped, and its ownership, not unlike owning a website. You
right.
know, like that's your domain, and
right.
you own it. So they're talking about how to validate art moving forward, and that's going to be through this digital art, through this program or this process. And then the next conversation that came up was about deep fake videos. Because deep fake videos, if you have no knowledge, the technology that exists today can be very, very convincing,
right.
in the sense of you, in fact, you could replace my face and have your voice come out of, or I could have your voice come out of my face.
Right.
And they're talking about how about this in the criminal system, and what happens if evidence is being presented that's a deep fake evidence. And then, you've seen some stuff online where the president or the former president said this, but in fact never did, and vice versa. Somebody else came in and said something, because the deep fake videos are so convincing,
right.
and so technologically sound that it's almost impossible. So to authenticate original video content and then have that validated through a system that's been, respected worldwide is another way that this system may find its legacy. It's going to have, years and years and years they'll be talking about it. So I'm interested because like this is brand new, and we're kind of like wild west all over again. We're like, in a lot of respects, we're like 1999 talking about e-commerce, and the likes. And that was like, nobody's going to want to buy online. I don't want to get my credit card over the internet.
So I learned something this week through a friend that has a shipping distribution company. They found the predictions that they had for this last Christmas in terms of shipping volume was supposed to be like 3x than their normal shipping capacity. And it turned out that it was double that or something to that matter. And what they found through research was the older generation learned how to purchase online.
The older generation started purchasing.
So,
that's exactly what happened.
So all of a sudden they have a bit of more disposable income than probably most families.
Yes.
And
nice nest eggs.
Well, I can give you a personal experience where my mother-in-law wanted some yarn and my wife's like, I'll have it shipped to you. I'll just order it on Amazon. She's like, what? And then the next day, you get the email saying your parcel's been delivered. And she's like, I can't believe that it's here. So what's the next step?
Yes.
You open an Amazon account for her and walk her through the process. And now it's just like order everything.
Order everything.
I mean, she's not going out of control, but it's like to know that is available to them, and knowing how to navigate and how simple it is. I mean, Amazon's the best at making it as simple as possible. Order now and that's it. Those people that were not part of the game are now in the game.
Those people, the Gen X and the boomers,
they're
participating, and to your point, they have cash. So, it might not be as frequent as, my teenagers.
Right.
But at the same time, it's in a lot of cases maybe higher priced items. But the fact is that you've now exposed this whole process and procedure to a market that didn't have any interest in it before.
Right.
We're actually not not that they weren't interested, they were afraid of it.
Right.
And they didn't know how to navigate. And, I actually want for our next podcast to talk about the future of retail, because I've been thinking about that a lot. And I think that we've got some very interesting times ahead of us about bricks and mortar and clicks and mortar and showrooms versus retail spots, and behavior.
Yeah.
And behavior is a big piece of this. But I've seen other companies maybe even do a better job than Amazon in that process.
Right.
From a customer service perspective.
Right.
And that's where I think there's going to be a lot of headway, and where we're going to see expertise rise to the top. And we'll see an evolution of the likes of the Amazons of the world, but I've personal experience, ordered a piece of technology from like a major retailer, Best Buy, and the process was seamless. It was flawless. It was a better experience than some of the other big ones. So I think that the next step for us is to make sure that people continue. They feel that convenience is important, let's face it. I'm in the middle of cleaning the office or renovating or putting up, pictures or wall art. And I could either stop what I'm doing right now and not work on something else in the office. I can drive to my Home Depot. I get out of my car. I shop inside there. I'm talking about an hour to an hour and a half by the time it's all said and done.
Yep.
Or I can spend 10 minutes online, and it can be at my place the next morning when I didn't have to stop anything.
Right.
Maybe 10 minutes.
Right.
Was my total out time.
Yeah.
And I know that it's going to be exactly what I ordered. It's going to show up on time as expected. The delivery is tracked, and I can rearrange my schedule to suit my needs, not have to fall, victim to the store hours, and make sure I'm there before 10. And if I don't go now, and then all of a sudden I've got an hour and a half outside of my project, that doesn't make me, productive anymore.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I have little guys at home where I can't leave them alone.
Can't.
And then I have to get out there before the thing closes. No. Click. Tomorrow I'm going to keep doing what I need to do, and I'll deal with that thing that I need tomorrow in order to keep this process going. And it just makes it that much easier.
Like I said, we are in the best time of our lives. We're very, very fortunate, very lucky to have, outside of all the damage that COVID has done, the realizations that it's provided, the opportunity that it's created, and the behavioral changes have afforded us. You imagine if this happened 15 years ago, we would have been pooched. But man, are we ever in a good spot? I think we'll recognize more of that as we navigate through the next couple of years. That how fortunate we really are right now.
Yeah,
learning everything, learning education. We're gonna course correct. We're gonna do what's right. Enough families and parents and educators and people with more letters after their names than I could imagine.
We need leaders though right now. We really do. We have witnessed good decisions, horrible decisions, more bad decisions than good decisions through the people we've elected into office. And I think we need more leaders, people that never, ever wanted to be involved in politics, but are like, you know what? We need some common sense here.
Yeah.
We really do. And it's not about votes. It's about, let's get course corrected. Let's set this up for this generation behind us, because they're in a heap of trouble. Listen, look at the housing market right now in Ontario. It's gone crazy. There's no reason why houses have gone up so much in such a short period of time. There's no reason at all. Come on. And the fact is, people are just going out there putting bids $200,000 over asking price. That's insane.
Yeah, there's
and my concern is, when my children are going out on their own, they're never going to be able to purchase a home. It's just not going to happen.
No, they're going to live entirely different lives than us.
Unless that generation changes things, though.
Right.
Or we do.
Right. That's where those corrections will come along. And it actually has a lot to do with leadership.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, when politics weren't important to you and you didn't vote, now I think you're going to have a more discerning approach to it. And you want to make sure that you understand the position of that person that's saying, hey, look at me. I want to be your voice.
Yeah.
You're going to interest people, just like the U.S. election interested people that had never participated in a vote before.
Yeah.
I think now we're going to look we're going to scrutinize more and be more filled with intent and direction when we start to say, what is your position here? How are you going to help me and my family make sure that we can navigate the waters?
Yeah.
And then be remembered for how they navigated their time in office through this.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not just men involvement, it's women too. I mean, we have our first female vice president who I haven't seen on TV at all. Nor have I seen the president on TV, but I mean the first female vice president, and that's massive. But it just seems to be buried with everything else that's going on. I don't know. I think that should be massively celebrated. I mean,
yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I don't see as much of it as I'd like, because I think we got bombarded for so long with stuff that didn't make a difference. Really, it was more entertainment than it was value. But I do think that anything that I have heard has been really, it's been quite refreshing, and I can't wait to see what happens there more from that leadership. But I think that, to your point, we're going to see this reform in how we are being selective about who comes into politics for us too.
Yeah,
I'm thrilled and I'm excited about that.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, and you wonder, is it going to be like an immediate impact, or is it going to be something that's just going to take a snail's pace to, it's a big ship to turn, right?
It's a big ship to turn. I mean, I've been told many times that you should go for politics.
Yes.
You should be in politics. And
you should.
I don't know if...
But it's politics.
I don't know if it's something that either I have a stomach for or they'll have a stomach for me, because... I'm a kind of a no-nonsense, get it done kind of guy.
Right.
And maybe that's actually the point that you were making, where we need some common sense. And, it's been said many times that I'd love to stand behind you and have you represent us. And I think that's super complimentary. It makes me feel really good.
My fear is that you get in there, the system will handcuff you.
Right. That's what I've been told. I've been told by some people that are in various positions that said, you got to really, you've got everything that the job needs you to have, with the exception that you're going to be bridled and you're going to be, calmed.
And that needs to change.
I think so too.
That is the problem right there, is the fact
so
that you can't talk about this subject. No. We have so many things to fix that everything is open. Everything's an open conversation now. Yeah. And that's what we need more, too, is conversation.
Yeah, and let's not worry about the things that mean nothing. I don't care what you look like, and I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what you identify as. All the things that people get so caught up on, let's just talk about what's going to move us all forward.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to those real conversations with real people that aren't out to simply collect votes.
Just accept and move on.
Yeah. Agreed.
Whatever
accept and moved on. Yeah.
Just accept it.
You know what I heard? This is probably where we should be wrapping up soon. But one of the best things I heard this week was, why a rear view mirror is so small? Because in comparison to the front facing window, you only look at the little tiny things in the rear view mirror, whereas you have the whole window in front of you to see what's available. Right. And that to me is exciting, because that's kind of the way I live my life. What's behind me is done. Move on. Let's keep going. Let's not make it a part of our future if it doesn't need to be. But look what we have in front of us.
Right.
And that's where I'm most excited about it. So the office renovation and cleanup is giving me a chance to be creative and to have organization behind me. The family discussions and that dynamic to keep on growing make me feel like we're in a really healthy spot.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're being rocked and shocked by what's happening digitally in this world tells me that there's a lot of disruption that still continues to happen. So we've got a lot to look forward to, man. I'm thrilled for it.
Me too.
I really am. Frank, bud, thanks for being on. Thanks for teeing this all up for us. And for all of you that sat in and listened, and even if you took on a little piece of this, I'm grateful to have you guys, and look forward to the next time we can get on and podcast. So do everything you're supposed to do on these podcasts, like, subscribe, pass it on to some friends, and let me know what you'd like to have us talk about, because that's really what we're here for. We're just kind of muddling our way through the life of podcasts. So hope you were entertained, and at the very least, maybe got something out of it. Thanks for joining me today.